In the quiet landscape of 1880 New Mexico, Amos Vane found solace in his remote cabin, nestled between towering mesas and whispering pines. With a rugged face weathered by time and solitude, he had chosen a life away from the chaos of humanity. His only companion was a loyal dog named Scout, a scruffy mutt with bright eyes and boundless energy. Together, they roamed the hills, sharing the simplicity of nature and an unbreakable bond forged through years of companionship. Amos cherished these peaceful moments, often talking to Scout as if he were an old friend. Little did anyone know that beneath his calm exterior lay the heart of a once-feared bounty hunter, a man who had faced dangers far worse than loneliness. This life of reclusion was about to be shattered by an unforeseen tragedy that would force him back into a world he had long abandoned. Amos started each day with the soft light of dawn filtering through the trees, a gentle reminder of the beauty surrounding him. He would rise early, stretching his weary limbs before preparing breakfast for himself and Scout. Together, they shared simple meals often, consisting of cornbread and wild berries Amos would forage for. After breakfast, he would spend hours tending to his small garden, growing vegetables that sustained them both. In the afternoon, Amos enjoyed long walks along the winding trails, where the quiet hum of nature wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. He often spoke to Scout, sharing his thoughts with the dog, who listened intently. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Amos would sit on his porch, reflecting on his solitary life. It was a routine filled with peace, far removed from the chaos he had left behind. Meanwhile, on a distant ranch, a group of rowdy hands had spent the day celebrating their hard-earned wages. Laughter echoed as they passed around bottles of whiskey, their raucous voices mingling with the sounds of clattering boots against wooden floors. The sun began to set, painting the sky in deep shades of red and grey as they grew more boisterous. Fueled by alcohol and bravado, they sought new mischief to entertain themselves. As they rode through the landscape, the sight of Amos's cabin caught their attention. With wild whoops and shouts, they galloped toward it, not considering the consequences of their actions. Each ranch hand carried an air of careless excitement. Their judgment was clouded by drink. Little did they know that their reckless antics would soon shatter the peace that Amos had held so dear for years. As the ranch hands neared Amos's cabin, their laughter turned into wild shouts. With reckless abandon, they tossed torches at the wooden structure, the flames quickly licking up the walls. Amos, alerted by the sudden crackling and acrid smoke, rushed outside to witness his sanctuary engulfed in fire. His heart sank as he caught sight of Scout, barking anxiously, trapped outside. In that moment of chaos, one of the men raised a gun for sport, aiming it at his beloved dog. The shot rang out, followed by a haunting silence that filled the air. Shocked and devastated, Amos felt an overwhelming wave of sorrow wash over him as he watched Scout fall. The realization of losing his only companion shattered his peaceful existence, igniting a fiery rage within him that would soon demand justice against those who had stolen everything he held dear. Overwhelmed by grief and anger, Amos felt like a storm brewing inside him. The memories of his past as a feared bounty hunter came rushing back, days spent tracking down the most dangerous criminals across the wild frontier. He had once thrived on the thrill of the hunt, notorious for his sharp aim and unwavering resolve. But that life had been buried beneath years of solitude, far removed from violence and chaos. Now, with Scout gone and his home in ashes, the weight of sorrow transformed into a burning desire for revenge. The quiet man who had sought peace was gone. In his place stood a vengeful spirit awakened from a long slumber. Fueled by loss, Amos vowed to reclaim justice, ready to draw upon the very skills he had hoped to forget, knowing that it was time to rise from the shadows and confront the menace that had destroyed everything he loved. The sun sank low in the sky, shadows creeping across the charred remains of his cabin as Amos stood amidst the ruins, his heart pounding with a mix of sorrow and determination. He could no longer hide from the pain or the memories of his past. In that moment, he made a decision. He would rise up and take action. With steady hands, he walked into his modest storage shed, dust covering the old weapons he had once relied upon. He carefully retrieved his well-worn rifle and a pair of revolvers, feeling their familiar weight reinvigorate his resolve. Each click of the mechanisms reminded him of his skill and purpose. As he strapped on his old leather belt, a fire ignited within him, replacing despair with a fierce will to seek justice for Scout and reclaim what was lost. It was time to ride back into the storm he thought had passed him by. With a fierce resolve burning inside him, Amos began to prepare for the impending hunt. He gathered essential supplies from his cabin, carefully selecting items that would aid him on his journey. A sturdy rope, a small hunting knife, and dried herbs for making tea were swiftly stuffed into his worn saddlebag. Next came the memories like whispers in his mind of skills he had honed in the wild days of his youth. He recalled the intricate tracking techniques for following elusive targets, remembering how to recognize subtle signs in the landscape that others might miss. As he cinched his saddle tight onto his horse, he practiced calming breaths to focus his thoughts. Each movement reminded him of the hunter he once was. Ready or not, Amos felt that this mission was not just about vengeance, but reclaiming a piece of himself lost to years of solitude and grief. With a heavy heart, yet a determined spirit, Amos stepped outside, the cool evening air brushing against his face as he approached his horse. The once familiar routine now felt charged with purpose. He gently stroked the horse's muzzle, feeling an unexpected connection in this moment. He was no longer just a hermit. He was a man on a mission. As he secured his saddle, memories of his past flooded back, the thrill of the chase, the adrenaline coursing through him in pursuit of justice. With each strap tightened, he felt layers of solitude peel away, revealing the hunter he had once been. Mounting his steed, Amos took one last glance at the charred remains of his cabin. It was time to leave behind the life of quiet reflection and step into the chaos he thought he had escaped forever. With resolve in his heart, he rode off into the dusk, ready to confront his destiny. Amos rode deeper into the New Mexico terrain, his keen eyes scanning for any signs of the ranch hands he pursued. He recalled his training and began to identify subtle clues left behind broken twigs, disturbed soil, and faint hoofprints in the dust. Moving silently through the underbrush, he used the shadows to his advantage, maintaining a low profile as he edged closer to their hideout. As he tracked their path, he took note of their raucous laughter drifting through the air, indicating they were nearby. With each cautious step, he imagined the confrontation that awaited him, calculating his approach. Amos knew this would require not just speed, but careful strategy. He needed to catch them off guard. The thrill of the hunt surged within him as he finally spotted the flicker of a fire in the distance, fueling his resolve to reclaim justice for Scout. As Amos crept closer to the flickering campfire, tension hung in the air like a thick fog. The ranch hands were laughing, their boisterous voices echoing through the night, unaware of the storm that was about to descend upon them. With his heart pounding in his chest, Amos stepped into the light, revealing himself to the startled men. Each face turned pale as they recognized the fierce determination in his eyes. "You thought you could destroy my life and get away with it?" he growled, his voice steady despite the anger coursing through him. The laughter died away, replaced by an eerie silence as they realized they were no longer in control. In that moment, Amos felt all his grief transform into raw energy. He reached for his weapons, knowing this was not just a fight for revenge, but a battle for justice, the kind that would echo through every corner of the New Mexico wilderness. The stillness of the night shattered as Amos lunged forward, drawing his rifle with practiced precision. The first shot rang out, catching one ranch hand off guard and sending him sprawling to the ground. Fear overtook the others, but Amos was relentless. He moved with the fluidity of a seasoned hunter, using trees for cover and positioning himself strategically to keep them disoriented. Memories of past confrontations surged through him, the thrill of tracking, the sense of justice surveyed as he dodged behind a boulder and fired again. Emotions surged within him. Grief for Scout, rage for his lost home, and a fierce determination to reclaim his peace. Each movement felt both foreign and familiar. He was no longer just a reclusive hermit, but a vengeful force fueled by sorrow. With every shot that echoed through the night, he knew this was a battle not just for revenge, but for his very soul. The confrontation reached a climax as the remaining ranch hands lay defeated, their laughter now silenced by the weight of their actions. Amos stood amidst the chaos, his heart heavy with mixed emotions. The thrill of justice served was tainted by the profound loss he had endured. Each face before him reminded him of the pain inflicted on his life and Scout's tragic fate. As he surveyed the scene, a sense of emptiness washed over him. He had avenged Scout, but at what cost? The adrenaline that had fueled him began to fade, leaving behind a somber realization that violence could never truly fill the void left by his loyal companion. With a deep breath, Amos turned away from the wreckage and began his journey home, carrying both the burden of his actions and the hope that one day he might find peace again in the quiet of nature. As Amos rode away from the scene of confrontation, a heavy silence enveloped him, contrasting sharply with the chaos he had just experienced. The faces of the ranch hands lingered in his mind, but their defeat brought him no joy. Instead, it deepened the ache of loss. He thought of Scout, the loyal companion who had filled his days with warmth and love. Though he had avenged his dog, the act of violence failed to ease the profound emptiness left in his heart. Each mile he traveled felt laden with sorrow as he grappled with what he had become, a man shaped by grief rather than peace. In that moment of reflection, Amos understood that true justice would never be found through revenge. Instead, he yearned for healing in the quiet embrace of nature, hoping one day to reclaim the tranquility he had once cherished. As Amos rode along the familiar paths of New Mexico, he contemplated the choices that had led him to this moment. The silence of the landscape mirrored his internal struggle. Should he continue to live in solitude, or was it time to embrace the community he had shunned for so long? Memories of Scout and their shared life together lingered, but now they were intertwined with thoughts of connection and belonging. He recalled the faces of those who had once been part of his life, the laughter and warmth they provided. Though pain had driven him into isolation, perhaps healing awaited him among others who understood loss. With each passing mile, a sense of hope began to blossom within him. It was time for a new chapter, one where he could find strength in relationships and reclaim not just peace, but a sense of purpose beyond revenge.